We talk all things Project Hail Mary right here on Beyond the Screen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very exciting edition of Beyond the Screen. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me, as always, is the backhoe riding Jake Holtzclaw. Jake.
I don't know what backhoes.
You know what you rode on this past weekend.
Well, ain't no backhoe.
What was it then?
Excavator.
Bro, the excavator riding. Sorry.
Excavator. Yeah.
Excavator.
And people call them all kinds of different things.
The Vaders.
Yeah. And then what we like to call the rotating dump trucks.
Nice.
Yeah. Brand name Maruka.
That was my nickname in high school.
Right. Rotating dump truck.
Right.
Rotating track dump truck. Yeah. Because it got tracks. Like. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I did that this weekend. Bunch of kids, let them crawl all over it and control them and drive them around and destroy stuff.
Yeah, Jake works in heavy machinery, so he has the fun, but also what I would argue is a very terrifying job, especially in that respect. Not on the day-to-day, but only when he's got to hang on to the side of an excavator with children driving it. That would that'd be a no bueno for me, my friend. But I'm happy that you got
insurance is for.
Yeah,
you pay a lot of money
for. You would think.
you would
think. Yeah.
So yeah.
Can you imagine paying all that for insurance? And as you're like I can only imagine you mid spin on this heavy machine, you're hanging off the side, and you're like, "Well, I hope my insurance would cover this." As you're losing your grip, like not even like full confidence, just "Well, I hope."
Well,
but, yeah.
There was a food truck on the other side of the fence that, like, if they went further, definitely would have hit it. I mean, definitely.
Ooh.
No, like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like it's somebody put that food truck on that fence, knowing dang well there were children operating equipment.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
No, thank you, my friend. And that is where I think I will end the discussion, because I'm happy I wasn't on the side of that heavy machine.
Higher education or whatnot.
Whoa.
You thinks they're smarter.
Got my soft hands. I do video and photography for the fine arts at a college. Okay, like what do you want from me? Okay, I got them soft hands, baby.
Much
soft.
less property damage happening with these.
Clammy and soft is what you can describe my hands like. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into our first segment, which is always box office. We always start the box office segment with a little bit of predictions. We're starting the new season. This is episode 2 of season 3, which is crazy. We've been at this a year and a half, had an expedited short kind of discovery realm of season 1, which lasted about, what would you say, 4 or 5 months, had a full year-long season 2, and now here we are with season 3. So for those who are, again, I described this last week, but we're going to go over it again this week. For those who were regulars, especially near the end of season 2, we did a prediction special every single first segment. How we started each show was we predicted. And originally the concept was we'll get 5 out of 5 more often than not, or at least more than we thought, and we'll count that as a single point. We did it a collective of twice, I think. We did not do it very well, so we stopped keeping track. We just were having fun. But now we're going to actually add some competition, okay? Each week when we predict, every film we get correct in the correct position on the box office top 5, that'll count to a season total. So every time we get one right, that gets added to our yearly total. At the end of the season, there's going to be potentially a trophy, an award given to whoever is the winner at our Oscar special. So at the night of Golden Little Man trophies, one of us is going to get a golden trophy of some sort, whether or not. Hopefully it's one of us, and we'll describe what we mean by that here in a minute. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at the scoreboard. Let's look at what we predicted last week, and let's look at how close each of us got. Here we go. 2026 box office scoreboard. We see a lot of greens and a lot of reds, which get used to this. This is how it's going to work. Mine is on the top. Jake's is in the middle, and what we call TJ. This is Claude. TJ stands for Tim Jim or Timmy Jimmy. We moved on from ChatGPT. Yes, we use a bot. That's who we're competing against. We had Jimmy last season, who was ChatGPT. We moved on from ChatGPT to Claude, and we thought it'd be funny to name him Timmy, with his middle name being Jimmy, and he goes by TJ. So, how did we do? You see it on your screen. I predicted Project Hail Mary, Hoppers, Ready or Not 2, The Mummy Returns, which had a re-release this past weekend, and then Reminders of Him at 5. I got 3 out of the 5 correct, with the 1, 2, and 5 being correct. Jake, had the exact same top 3 as me. Hail Mary, Hoppers, and Ready or Not 2. Got the first 2 correct, and just like me, missed with Ready or Not 2 at 3. He predicted They Will Kill You at 4, and The Mummy Returns at 5, missing the last 3, getting 2 out of 5 correctly. And lastly, TJ predicted very similarly to us. He had 1 and 2 being Project Hail Mary and Hoppers, with They Will Kill You coming in 3rd, getting all 3 of those correctly, missing out on the last 2. He predicted Reminders of You and Ready or Not 2 at 4 and 5, getting both of those wrong. So me and Jimmy tie for 3. We're starting the season strong with a close race right out of the gate for our stat keeping segments. So me and Jimmy finish with, or TJ finish with 3. Jake finishes with 2. Again, the competition is off to a strong start as again, the race is underway. So let's look at the box office and see how it did actually. Let's go over the proper 1 through 5. Starting at number 1, we have Project Hail Mary and Hoppers at 2, as we discussed already. They Will Kill You finishes 3rd. Durhandar finishes 4th, and then Reminders of Him finishes 5th. 1 through 5. Let's go back to the top and let's read the numbers. Starting at number 1, Project Hail Mary, you knew it was going to be there. You've seen it. You've heard about it. It is everywhere right now. In its second weekend in theaters, earns $54.5 million domestically to bring its global tally to $300.8 million. It has crossed the $300 mark in 2 weeks, which is a huge win for Amazon MGM, dropping only 32% in ticket sales domestically. Amazon needed this win. We talked about it last week. We'll go over it a little bit again this week. Amazon had flop after buying MGM, had a slow rollout to James Bond because of the broccoli family debacle, which go back and listen to our episodes to talk about the absolute villainy that is Jeff Bezos and how he ended up getting full control of that. Now we know Denis Villeneuve and whoever he replaces Daniel Craig with in that lead role as James Bond, that will come out at some point, but that's a slow roll with Dune coming out. Who knows when that's going to happen? That was the whole reason the Amazon train cash cowed MGM, was because they wanted James Bond in that franchise. That's been a slow roll. Again, flop after flop as they're trying to get James Bond going. Project Hail Mary was the one they bid on, and they bid correctly. Again, crossing that $300 million mark, that's a fantastic sign for the company, as it means that they not only earned back their $280 million, but it means fantastic for the longevity and the legs it has in the box office. However, just because they earned back their production value does not mean they're out of the red, because they still have to make back marketing costs, which, again, it's Amazon. You saw it. Everyone saw the previews for this film. Everyone saw the trailers. They probably have to make $500 to $600 million in order to make any sort of black.
The commercials they were doing alone just to get Rocky to actually look like he did in the movie, because he's a puppet. So that actually takes VFX guys turning that puppet into a character on screen for 30 seconds, which is a lot of freaking money.
A lot of money. So imagine, again, they have to make between 500 and 600 reportedly million in order to even touch the black, not even talking about green. So you might be wondering, will it reach that? Well, the Dailies makes a fun point, because when you compare the second weekend or the second frames from Project Hail Mary to some of the other biggest winners in the past 5 years, those being Oppenheimer and Dune Part 2, it is outperforming those two films in its second weekend in theaters. Reminder, Oppenheimer earned just under $1,975 million, and then Dune Part 2 earned $714 million. So if we go by just those numbers, films that had a similar kind of vibe, similar kind of feel in terms of how big they were in the box office, this is a film that might make between $700 and $900 million, which, again, that firmly puts Amazon in the green, making money. We'll talk a little bit about what's coming out next week in a minute when we talk about our predictions, but I don't think it will hit that $700-800 million. It'll be close. We'll talk about why here in a second. But going down the line, Hoppers finishes second in its month in theaters, its fourth weekend in theaters, earning $12.2 million domestically and pushing its global total to $297.6 million. That's only a 31% drop in ticket sales domestically, which is, again, for a film in its fourth week, Pixar and Disney keep doing this. It was Zootopia for the longest time. Hoppers continues to do well. Again, holding on to that second place mark for the second consecutive week. It might even be the third straight week that it's held on to that second place. It is not going away. That is a luxury that it will not have next week, as Illumination Super Mario film, its sequel, comes out. And a lot of people have a lot of thoughts about how well that film will do, and there's a lot of hype behind it, and it is also a family film. And when you compare it to the first one, again, we'll talk about it later, not looking good for Hoppers and its legs as the beast that is Illumination Super Mario Galaxy movie comes out next week. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But finishing third, They Will Kill You, debuting at $5 million domestically, $9 million globally, all on a $20 million budget. This film, we've talked a lot about like great stuff thus far. Hail Mary, Hoppers, doing very well, earning money for their respective production houses. This is the first one that is not so great this week, as it underperforms by almost half of its projection. A lot of projections were saying it was going to make 10. They Will Kill You makes 5 domestically, right? Warner Brothers and New Line's bloody original swing by Zazie Beetz lands with a dud. Reviews for the film include a meh with a 63% from 116 reviews on the tomato meter, so that's critics, and a decent 80% from the popcorn meter. This is a horror film that's kind of like a thriller / gore porn type. These films don't usually do well at the box office. They usually crash and burn within their second week. We talked about it time and time again. Horror films, 50 to 60% drops are normal, and it earned less than or around half of what it was projected to domestically. Not a great sign for a film that cost $20 million to make, especially going into its second weekend with what we talked about, the aforementioned Super Mario movie. So we'll see what happens with They Will Kill You. The Rotten Tomatoes synopsis include, quote, They Will Kill You unleashes a bloody-soaked, high-octane horror action comedy in which a young woman must survive the night at the Virgil, a demonic cult's mysterious and twisted death trap of a lair, before becoming their next offering in a uniquely brazen, big-screen battle of epic kills and wickedly dark humor. It seems fun. I won't even lie. I hadn't heard about it until last week, which probably is why it's kind of hit the dud in its debut. Moving down the line, finishing fourth is Durhandar, The Revenge in its second weekend in theaters, earning $4.9 million domestically, pushing its global total to $89.8 million. The Hindi action film dropped 53% in ticket sales, which is expected from a Hindi film. Not a lot of people expected this to even be in the top 5. It broke records as the highest grossing indie film or the best opening Hindi film in North America ever. So there was some expectation that maybe its audience, a lot like horror films, front-loaded it and it was going to drop. But 53% is not a bad number for a film like Durhandar, earning again another essentially $5 million at the box office. And rounding out our top 5 is Reminders of Him, very close to Durhandar at $4.7 million earned domestically, pushing its global tally to $69.5 million on a $25 million budget. Just a reminder, They Will Kill You, the difference between 3 and 5, They Will Kill You, Durhandar, and Reminders of Him is $300,000. So it's a very tight race for the end of the box office. It is not close beyond that. But again, 3 through 5, very tight race. Other news from throughout the box office, Ready or Not 2 falls completely out of the top 5, has a steep drop. But the thing is, again, horror films have a tendency to drop far or have a tendency to drop off after their first week, so it's not like it's crazy for them. The thing is, not accounting for inflation, this film's earning about the same as its original, which is not what you want to see from a sequel. You want to see the sequel go up, so if there was plans for a third, they might be in jeopardy now. But at least if you're the production house, if you're with Ready or Not 2, you can say, you know what, at least we're earning the same amount our first one did, which isn't necessarily a loss. And a lot of people seem to like it. So Jake, with that out of the way, what catches your eye from around the box office?
I think Durhandar catches my eye. Yeah. No.
Expound.
Expound. This is the second Durhandar we've seen in the box office, isn't it, Ryan?
We saw it last week, but I feel like Durhandar was something we had talked about last year at some point.
Yeah, this is the second Durhandar we've seen. This is the sequel. This is The Revenge.
Right. Yes. I just don't remember when the original. Did it really?
It was last year.
So we definitely did talk about it, and I feel like last year it also hit the top 5
in
its
really
debut.
Well.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not necessarily that shocking when you really take inventory of the franchise.
I'm trying to find the first week what it did.
The original.
It did, yeah. First week, 115 million.
That's worldwide, right?
Worldwide, yes. I wish I could tell you what place it got.
Durhandar earned 28 million globally last week.
I don't think I'm going to be able to find it. Yeah,
that 9.6 it earned domestically is a record in the U.S. for a Hindi film.
Maybe I can find the day it was. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'm pissed. What happened to The Mummy? I thought everybody would be into The Mummy, right?
Yeah, it finished 12th, earning $600,000 in over 1,400 theaters. Universal tries with the re-release. And the thing is, too, is I feel like that this was kind of a precursor to Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which is coming out in about a month. I think they were trying to, Universal's trying desperately to revitalize their MonsterVerse. You've seen last year or the year before, I mean, a handful of years, it was The Invisible Man. And then last year, the year before, we saw a werewolf film, if I remember correctly. It was with, yeah, you remember, you see it, and I can't remember the title, but I can see the trailer in my head. That film flopped. That did not do very well.
I found
Julie Gardner was in that. Julie Gardner was in that. And now they re-released The Mummy Returns with Brendan Fraser, trying to ride the high of the Brendan Fraser renaissance and hype up their new film. But my worry is I don't think people are excited for a Lee Cronin remake. I think they're excited for the next edition with Brendan Fraser, which we will see. It'll be interesting to see them greenlight both and have them both in production. Obviously, Lee Cronin's is about to release, so they're not necessarily overlapping. But it's interesting that they're both around the same time frame.
Durandar got 4th in its second week. By the way,
did they flip?
No, I'm talking about the first one. Yeah, still got 4th back then too. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So they both had top 5 mainstays. They had legs for a minute.
What's weird is that this came out like just now, late March. The 2025 one was like early December.
They filmed them at the same time then.
Yeah.
Most definitely. That's crazy. Usually those don't bode well.
Imagine getting a sequel within 6 months.
Well, The Strangers did that. The Strangers filmed like the prequels, the chapters 1, 2, and 3. They filmed, I think, the first 2 together. And apparently that was a production hell. And let me tell you, I hate to say this because how many times we made the point, like, no one sets out to make bad movies and we try not to say films are bad. They're not good. They miss the mark. And it's unfortunate because like, I really like Strangers, but who's going to watch? Like, I watched the first one, and when we were talking about when the sequel is coming out, we were like, who's watching these movies? Because they're not great. And so I usually, when they're filmed together, it means not great because that's one budget for multiple films. Shockingly, Durandar absolutely nails it. Good for them.
Top 5 twice.
Yeah, and in 5 months, which is absolutely insane. Great job for them. Looking around the rest of the box office, I see a lot of mainstays that kind of fell out. So after 6, we talked 1 through 6 with Ready or Not at that 6th spot. Scream 7 finishes 7th. Goat finishes 8th, and Undertone finishes 9th. So we have a kind of a slew of these mainstays. Goat is in its 7th week in theaters from Sony. It's pushed its global earnings, or I think this is actually its domestic, to 100 million, which is nuts for a Sony animation. I mean, outside of the Spider-Verse films, do we see films like that, like do that well? Not really, unless you're named Pixar, Disney, or any of the above. Scream pushes global tally, domestic tally to 118 million. So, and again, Scream is at 7. A lot of mainstays down here. Undertone from A24, right there at 9, has 18 million in global tallies thus far. I was right, global. So those numbers I was saying before were global. I thought they would be domestic. That's my bad. But yeah, very interesting top 10.
And then what I pointed out last week, debut, Our Hero Balthazar. For those who weren't here, it follows a wealthy New York City teenager eager to impress his activist crush. Follows an online connection to Texas where he believes he can stop an act of extreme violence, as in a school shooting. So it's holding strong at 26, with one theater making $33,000. I would compare that to next week's wide release, the Continental 25, one theater, $6,000. So promising. Maybe.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
Hey, look, 33,000 times 3,000 theaters. That's a lot of money.
Just imagine if we did this everywhere.
99 million. 99
Right.
million. That's a lot.
On the doorstep of 100 million domestically, which is a crazy
In one weekend, if they just got 3,000 theaters to show it.
And they made how much per theater?
33,000 a theater. Hey, scale.
Good
luck. Scale
Continental
up.
25. Bro,
up, man.
if we just scale.
Just we have to scale.
That's such a funny way.
Can you tell we took business classes?
Yeah, that's such a funny way to attack the movies.
In leadership meetings.
We go up to David Zaslav and Warner Brothers, like, you dummy, just scale. Like, what does that mean? We just keep doing this.
More. It means bigger.
It just means more, my SEC fans out there who like college football. Anyway, with that out of the way, what is our predictions? Let's get into our predictions. We have a very interesting selection here. Jake got mad at me before we started recording because, and I quote, "You took my idea." So let's go ahead and get those out of the way. Jake, you lead the way.
So I'm not necessarily one to just do what everybody else does, like some people on this podcast.
I had mine in first. What are you talking about?
So I like to kind of toss things up because like it would be unfair if I just said, "Oh yeah, let me use Ryan's predictions and piggyback right off of all his potentially correct answers." So I've got Super Mario Galaxy at 1, big shocker. Project Hail Mary at 2, shocker. Hoppers at 3, might be the most controversial opinion yet today. I've got The Drama at 4, and They Will Kill You at 5. So I don't want to spoil Ryan's, but I flip-flopped his 3 and 4, Hoppers and The Drama. I am going to put my money on a kid's flick, beating out Pattinson and Zendaya. That is that film, right, Ryan?
Yes.
Back me up. Yeah. So I honestly, it might do wonders. It might do crazy numbers, and it might not. I'm not sure. But I'm gonna hope that Hoppers holds out and unfortunately Pattinson flops because it's one of those like artsy movies. Who does it again? Is that A24?
Let me actually do a quick. Keep going. I'm gonna get you that information real quick.
And then They Will Kill You came in third at 5 million this week, so that's why I've put it at 5. Probably gonna drop down into the 3 million.
It is an A24 film from Christopher Borgli. Sorry, Christopher Borgli.
I'm telling him you mispronounced it.
He's a Norwegian. It's always the Norwegians. Their names are hard to pronounce, man. Anyway,
all right.
It is an A24 film.
Yeah. So artsy. Anyway, I don't know. Sometimes that means something, sometimes that doesn't.
It's tough because general audiences don't always click with artsy films. It really just depends. Like I would argue Sinners is a very artsy film. Like it says a lot about culture and it shows a lot about the art from those cultures. And it did fantastic. It set records for an original motion picture. So it is hit or miss. I think you have to have a certain level of like A-list. You have to have a certain level of like attraction.
How to Make a Killing.
Right.
Marty
like
Supreme.
that. Yeah. I wouldn't even say How to Make a Killing was like artsy.
The Smashing Machine.
Those are kind of the fringe of artsy.
If I had legs, I'd kill you.
I would say The Drama is artsy, but the drama's artsy a lot like how A Marriage Story is artsy. Like it's a slice of life. It is just kind of like, from what I understand, and the thing is what the drama actually is kind of hidden. Like it's not something that they're promoting. So no one really knows what the drama is going to be. I think there was a leak about it, but I'm hiding from it because I do kind of want to see what the film is because I love Robert Pattinson and Zendaya as performers. I think they're both fantastic.
Materialists flopped.
The Materialists, right? Yeah, I guess you
didn't
could.
Do okay. Did okay.
It did all right. I don't know. I don't necessarily. Again, The Materialist is kind of like a fringe artsy film. Like I wouldn't call it art housey, but I think artsy is very accurate. Before we move further with this discussion, I'll go ahead and go into my top 5. I start with, just like Jake, Super Mario Galaxy and Project Hail Mary. I think it's going to be like, they're talking Super Mario might make 350 million globally in its debut. Like it's going to be a behemoth, and it's going to make a lot of money for Illumination and for Sony. So great for them. Project Hail Mary made 50 million this week in the domestic box office. It's going to make somewhere around 30 to 40 again this week if it stays around that 30% drop, which it could. Don't really know, because Super Mario Galaxy and Project Hail Mary, they pull similar audiences, but I wouldn't say the exact same. And I can see a lot of people going back to watch Project Hail Mary even as it exits IMAX. So I think Project Hail Mary will stay strong around that $30 million mark. I have The Drama at 3, just because Hopper will be going into its 5th weekend. And I feel like Hopper's, a lot of its audience will be going to Super Mario. I still think you have a film that's making 12 million this week domestically, but it's going to drop if it drops half, it's still 6, and I think the drama can beat 6. I don't think anyone after Hoppers will make more than 6, but I think the drama will make around 8 or 9. And then at 5, I have Reminders of Him. It's a tough one at 5 because as we described before, They Will Kill You, Durhandar, and Reminders of Him are $300,000 apart from 3 through 5 this week. The only reason that I have Reminders of Him is because Durhandar and They Will Kill You dropped more this past week than Reminders of Him in terms of ticket sales. I just think that is a trend that we'll continue to see. They Will Kill You is going to drop because, again, it's a horror film, front-loaded as is. It's already underperforming. It's going to drop by probably 50%, so be around that $2 million mark. And then Durhandar is kind of a wild card. I'm not for sure. I think, again, if at this point being less than $500,000 apart, they're essentially starting at 0. It's just depending upon which one's going to drop less. They're almost at the exact same point. I really feel like Reminders of Him being a rom-com, it's easier to palate than a horror or a Hindi film for American audiences. And I just think after the first 4, the only one that makes sense for me is just Reminders of Him. Although it will be such a tight race, you really aren't wrong going either way. And with that out of the way, Jake, go ahead and tell the audience what TJ predicted for our for its top 5.
Same as Ryan. Super Mario Galaxy Movie, Project Hail Mary, the drama, Hoppers, and Reminders of Him. So that means Ryan is going to be our biggest loser.
Me and TJ are like, we're like tight right now, dapping each other
Tim
up.
Jim.
Old Tim Jim, me and Tim Jim. What up, Timmy? And we just like that, you know. But no, I'm happy, but I'm also nervous because these bots have been hit or miss, man, and. When it misses, it doesn't do well. Like, it's not like it misses and it gets 2 out of 5. It misses and it gets mostly none. So I'm a little nervous. I feel when I wrote these down, I was like, I'm a genius. I feel great. And then as soon as you said TJ had the exact same as me, I went, it's like, oh no. So no. So we'll see. But I still feel pretty confident. I think that you also have a very good justification for why Hoppers finishes over the drama. And again, They Will Kill You. It really is like a crapshoot for 5. So anyway, is there anything else we want to tell the people before we hop into segment 2?
I'm gonna win.
I'm gonna
what
win.
Y'all think? Put it in the comments. Who you think, or give your own prediction.
Ooh, we would love to have an audience prediction like scale. That'd be pretty cool. Like maybe we could do polls and people can like pick their 5, and we have like let us know if you want us to do that. That'd be sick, and that'd be fun to add you guys to the contest as well. The entire audience and the chat bot versus me and your pea brains. Oh boy. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get out of segment 1 and let's get into segment 2. So coming up after the break, a beyond the screen review of Project Hail Mary. We'll see you in a second. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Screen. This is a special episode because this is obviously the biggest film out in theaters right now. It is the highest grossing film in America since the beginning of the year. So you knew we were going to talk about it. You knew we had a lot to say. The problem is, and the reason why I'm having all this exposition before we get into it, is because there's a lot of science in this movie. There's a lot of deep thinking. Andy Weir is a very, very deep thinker and a very, very intelligent man. And there's a lot of levels to this, okay? Like we're going to go through it. We're going to describe as like it is as best as we can. The science in the book that was then adapted to the film is mostly accurate as it can be. So this isn't just science fiction. It is as much as it can be scientific. So we're going to describe as best we can with our knowledge, and we're going to bring in a specialist, and not a science specialist, but someone who knows the story better than we ever will. This person, when we get to that point, she's read the book, and she has watched the film twice now. So we're very excited to get her opinion whenever we get to that point. But before we bring her on, let's give you guys a spoiler-free and then a spoiler-filled breakdown of the story. Then we'll bring her on. So, as we always do, we start with spoiler-free. For those who haven't seen it yet, The film follows Dr. Ryland Grace, who's played by Ryan Gosling, after he wakes up from a coma in the deep recesses of space. On a mission to save humanity and potentially all of existence from an unknown threat, Grace serves as humanity's last hope aboard the ship the Hail Mary, one of humanity's greatest achievements in the face of almost inevitable destruction. The only issue? Grace wakes up with almost no memory of who he is, how he got there, and what his mission even is. As time passes, his memory returns, but humanity's chances at survival continue to dwindle. So, Jake, give me your quick spoiler-free thoughts. What you think about the film, what you thought about the film, just from a, I don't want to say like a vibe standpoint, but from a non-spoiler perspective.
I think that Ryan Gosling is me. I am him. No, I think that he's a very relatable character in the sense of like, what movie were we thinking about? Oh, no, it was Pluribus. It was like, it's one of those, it's the opposite side of the pendulum of I'm going to die and I'm not okay with it, which is what Pluribus was. Or like the end of the world and I'm not okay with it. Versus I know Ryan Gosling's character is like, I how do I describe it? He's not okay with it, like with the world ending, but he's also like, he's a little bit more happy-go-lucky or just willing to ride it out.
Yeah,
I guess, and not do anything about it. And he's kind of clumsy. He's like in terms of the other side of the pendulum, being very human in different ways than Pluribus is.
Yes. It's so funny you bring that up because there's no one else who could have played this role better than him. Yep. This role, I don't think Andy Weir had any inclination this was going to be adapted. There was no one else that this could have been written for or that could have performed it to the level that I feel like was probably like book heavy, right? I don't think anyone could have played this role and been as true to source as Ryan Gosling. So one, perfect casting, but two, exactly what you said. I had a conversation not long after viewing it, and Ryland Grace is the most human character. He has the most understandable responses to everything. Every time he opens his mouth, not at any point in the film what was I like, well, why would you make that decision? And it's not just because he's a scientist. He's Dr. Grace, right? Not just because obviously like he's smarter than I am as a character, but at the end of the day, every human decision he made, every human response he had was just so relatable. Never did it feel like Hollywood. It felt like I get it. Like I would do the same thing. So yeah, We're still going over our spoiler review for those who just joined us, or spoiler-free review for those who just joined us. It is, when I got done watching it, I texted Jake immediately because we weren't together, and I said, "This is a masterpiece." Just not in the sense of it's the best film that's ever been put to digital film. It's not the best film that's ever been put to screen, but for what it tried to be and who it was and what it was saying, it was perfect in all aspects. It was just such a feel-good movie. It's a movie that if you ever feel down, you turn it on and you just allow yourself to be transported to another world. And so I am so thankful that like these films exist, and this is why you go to the theaters, is because of films like this. It's whimsical, it's so smart, and Ryan Gosling's just fun. Like, he is one of the good guys of the internet and one of the good guys of Hollywood. And again, he's so relatable. As Jake likes to joke, I'm so him. But like, it's just when you see him on screen, it genuinely feels like he has just an understated ability to connect to audiences and make you feel like you know whatever character he is on a personal level. Like when he played Ken in Barbie, it was like, I feel like I know Ken. Like I feel like I know a Ken. It's like when you could even go like Ken. Go back to Blade Runner or go back to Drive. It's like these characters, even when they're flawed, even when they're darker, you still La La Land. You're like, this is the most human I would have ever imagined this character to be in whatever world, and I feel like I connect to this character. And that is a statement to Ryan Gosling. And we'll get into this later, and this was another thing I'd said having a discussion post-viewing. If Gosling continues at this pace, he will have no reason not to be included in best of all time. Because think about his filmography right now at 40-something. Imagine what it's going to be when he gets to an age where he actually starts looking back and we start thinking about legacy. But anyway, that's the spoiler-free review. Any other thoughts you want to bring up before we get into deep story?
When you do get into this movie or eventually watch it, look up all the fun facts or like the things that they did during this movie that made it so raw or real. Like there's items throughout this that Gosling didn't know would happen, and it's a lot of real reactions.
Yes.
And then as well as I don't know, just fun tidbits of information that you could probably find online, but like watch the movie and then go look into all that stuff, because it's very interesting how they conducted set.
Yes. Oh, I'm so happy you brought that up. They really made that world. They didn't use any, according to directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller, they didn't use any green screen. So most of it was practical. Yes, there's a lot of CGI in it because it's sci-fi, but you can tell that it's a lot of practical sets. It feels real. And when you look at the behind the scenes that are going around online with some of the puppets and with the way that they built that world, it is amazing and it is fun. So I'm so happy you brought that up to our spoiler-free friends who haven't seen it yet, who want us to keep quiet. So as always,
I have IMDb like trivia stuff that we could go over to if you wanted to.
Perfect. Let's do that in the spoiler filled. So for those who haven't seen it yet and want us to shut our trap and not spoil it for you, this is your warning. We always give a warning for newer films that we're reviewing. Hey, go away or mute us or go to the timestamps and go somewhere else. Then come back and watch us after you've watched it. Give us your opinions down in the comments because we'd love to hear from you. But this is your warning, because in about 5 seconds, we're going to be giving you the full, unadulterated rendition of Project Hail Mary. So with that out of the way, let's get into the spoiler-filled review, and let's talk about Project Hail Mary. So let's lay out the land, because again, as I said at the top, there's a ton of deep science in this film, and in the book especially, that makes the overarching story very full. So I'm going to say it right at the top. One of the most fun facts about the film was it was almost 4 hours before fellow filmmakers told directors Chris Miller and Lord to just straight up cut it however much they could, because it was too long, which is a crime. But because there's so much source material, there's a lot to pull from, and there's a lot that goes on in the film. So
people are begging to drop the actual cut, and everybody's saying it like, "Oh, that cut's not actually done." And I was like, "Don't care."
Yeah, don't care. Cut it, re-release it. I will go to IMAX again. I'll pay the $25 to go watch it, the full 4-hour film in IMAX, because it was fantastic. But let's go through the story. Let's lay the land a little bit. So again, we talked at the beginning. He's in a coma. He wakes up from a coma. It's a 4-year coma. He wakes with no memories in deep space, but also no company. He's alone, because he discovers upon waking up that he's the only survivor of their voyage. There are 2 other members that were supposed to be with him, a pilot by the name of Yao and an engineer by the name of Ilyukina. She's Russian and Yao is Chinese. Both die under mysterious and unexplained circumstances, as our guest will describe whenever she gets in here. We'll go through the story and then we'll bring her in. This is never explained in the book either. We don't really know. They don't explain it in the movie. They don't explain it in the book, but
I saw an interview.
Jake has some information. They don't survive the trip, and we'll get that here in a minute. So as he navigates the deeper recesses of his ship and memories begin to flood back to him, Grace recalls his origins, a disgraced molecular biologist who turned to teaching middle school science after he, years prior, hypothesized that water might not be the basis of life everywhere in the universe. Not to mention, he also might have attacked every major figurehead in his field in doing so insulting everybody. And long story short, he was kind of casted out of the scientific community, and that's why he's, as a molecular biologist, is teaching middle school science. This hypothesis gained the attention of Eva Stratt, the figurehead in charge of Project Hail Mary. So again, I know I keep saying, let's take a bigger picture. So that's kind of like where we are in terms of who Ryland Grace is, but let's take a bigger picture of what's happening on Earth for the setup for the story that is Project Hail Mary. For humanity, the catalyst for the entire story was the discovery of what was named the Petrova Line, a proverbial piece of infrared thread leading from Venus to the sun. Wondering what this was, scientists on Earth discovered this line wasn't just a glowing light connecting the 2 masses, but was a path of sorts for what was later named astrophage, a microscopic cell that feeds on stellar energy that was found to be eating the sun, for a lack of a better term, causing a slow but steady cooling of the planet. Humanity's time was officially ticking. Hence the birth of Project Hail Mary and the interest in Dr. Grace from Stratt, as the military leader and her scientists needed someone to study the organisms and figure out a way to end its intergalactic buffet. Grace becomes the world's leader in astrophage, learning not only how it reproduced carbon, hence its journey from Venus, and more importantly, how it travels through the stars, expelling energy from its absorption to travel. Again, I said that I pronounced that very specifically. That's an important detail that we'll come back to later. Now, the entirety of Project Hail Mary. Using these energized cells that are the astrophage as fuel, the world's leading countries plan on sending a massive spaceship more than 12 light years away to a star named Tau Ceti, a star that, despite having a Petrova line, remains the only unaffected mass throughout the visible universe. The crew of 3 aboard the Hail Mary were to consist of a scientist, an engineer, and a pilot, like we talked about earlier, with the understanding that this trip is a one-way flight due to fuel restrictions. So anyone who left, they weren't coming back, but the information they were sending back was vital to the survival of the human race. Now, after 4 years of travel, Grace finds himself orbiting Tau Ceti with only fragments of his memory, alone. Or is he? In the distance, Grace notices a ship dwarfing his own. This foreign freighter is made up of geometric shapes incomprehensible to the human mind. A collage of what looks like brass or gold streaks mold together a giant spaceship distinctly inhuman, and it notices the Hail Mary. Pulling up beside his own ship, the unknown vessel shares capsuled messages with our protagonist before docking the ships and revealing himself to be Rocky, a name Grace gave him due to his boulder-like appearance. A member of the arid species and the lone survivor of his own intergalactic travel on the same mission. After streamlining communication, Grace and Rocky stand as the last hope for the entirety of the universe. So with that, I'm going to ask Jake for his opinion, but I'm going to go ahead and bring forth our special guest on our episode. We're so excited to bring her on. This is Rosemary Kelly, our favorite digital content producer at a local news station, one of the biggest in our state, actually. She is absolutely fantastic. She's one of the best people I know. And again, she is the all things Project Hail Mary specialist in terms of anyone that we know, having read the book and watched the movie now twice. We're excited to bring her on. Thank you for joining us, Rose.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So again, I'm going to start with Jake, because I want to get his thoughts about the story before we get really into the deep end of this plot and the things that might have been missed from the book, but so on and so forth. Jake, what are your thoughts about Hail Mary? We've set up the plot for the entirety of the audience. Give me your thoughts.
So, yeah, let me see. I was unaware of like the memory fragmentation in the movie, and I was like, "What do you mean you don't remember? Come on, man! Like I don't remember either." So it kind of puts the audience in the same shoes of like, okay, he's kind of bumbling around the spaceship, figuring it out and doing exactly what everybody else would do. As soon as you sit down in the pilot chair and it like pilot detected, it immediately up.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not a pilot. Nope. Exactly what I would have done. But my thoughts, I watched it with the girlfriend, and she cried more than once. At the portions you would expect, and there were times that I was like, oh man, that's rough. So it did surprise me at the end. I don't know, am I allowed to talk about the end? Maybe.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
That he ended up like learning the language of Rocky, I guess. And so because we have subtitles and it's no longer the voice. Fun fact, the voice of Rocky is the puppeteer. So that was interesting. Little trivia. But he ends up teaching a class of like 20 of them, or however many, 12 in the book. Is that wrong?
Yes.
12 in the book, yeah.
I don't know if there were 12 in the movie. It seemed like a lot of them just screeching and hollering. But I thought it was a very beautiful film. And I want the 4-hour version of it badly. Ryan, do you need anything else from me? Ask me questions. I don't do put on the spot.
Well, we've talked a little bit about performance, and so there's a lot of talking points we could talk about, from performance, set design, score, special effects. Is there anything of those I just listed that really stood out to you specifically? Because it's easy to say, like we had said at the top, Ryan Gosling and set design, obviously. But if it's one of those two things, why? And if it's not one of those two things, go deeper into what elements of the story really stood out, or the filmmaking really stood out to you.
I would say the set design is probably the best. There are so many different actual places that they are. and they nail every single one of them. They make me feel like I'm on an aircraft carrier or a spaceship or out in space. I really get the feeling of fear that I guess Grace gets when he goes outside of the ship. It's just very frightening until towards the end he actually gets a hang of like spacewalking. But so Strat, I think, is the lady. We don't know what she goes through, I guess. In the book, we get a little bit more about what happened between the time that the pods are sent back to Earth. And I think that's a pretty interesting point. I can't wait to dive into with Rosie. But what else is there? That's about it. I mean, I love the music of it. The music was great choices.
Oh yes.
I wasn't paying attention to score as much, and I probably should have. But yeah, the music that they chose, like Harry Styles of all things, that was trivia. Another piece of trivia here is they asked her to sing that song like 48 hours before that take.
That's crazy.
Between sets or between takes or something like that. And they had asked her to do it, and she chose Harry Styles because she had asked somebody, I thought her daughter, if it was still cool, if Harry Styles was still cool or that song was still cool. And that's what they went with. I thought that was very interesting. I don't know what the actual original was supposed to be. Somebody else singing it, maybe? No, it wouldn't have been that song. It would have been some other take, right?
Yeah.
Other scene. I don't know what was supposed to be there.
Yeah, I there's a point. So going back, sticking with the music, Daniel Pemberton is the composer. He's an Academy-nominated composer. Just absolutely nailed it. From every single score, from every single song that was put in place, it felt like it added to the story. It didn't feel like it was just kind of a placeholder, so it wouldn't just be dead air. I specifically think, when I think back to score, I think of whenever Rocky pulled up his ship beside the Hail Mary, and it's that very low, like, bum, 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 because it felt mysterious, but it didn't feel threatening. And that was exactly what was happening. Like, at first, Grace was freaked out, but when he learned that there was a communication that was attempting to be made, the style of music fit the mood of the scene. And you don't, like, obviously that's like the goal, but you don't always feel that. And I feel like this was done in such an expert way that when it comes to Oscar season next year, we're 2 weeks removed from the Oscars, maybe we should start hearing about Pemberton whenever we get to who should be nominated, talking about, and not just nomination for score. We're talking about set design and visual effects and so on and so forth. This should not be forgotten. But there's a lot to be said also about, again, humanity. And I don't want to get too deep into that because I want Rose to really bring that in. The last thing I'll say before we get to Rose, I have a few other notes. Rocky is an engineer whose fellow 22 Iridians died due to radiation poisoning. Rocky lived, and Rose added this, Rocky lived because the location of his workshop within Blip A is surrounded by astrophage and thus protected him from radiation. While the trip took Grace 4 years, 12 years passed on Earth due to time dilation. So whenever we were talking about earlier how much time it took Strat on Earth, how much time passed for her, she warned in the story that Earth had 30 years before mass deaths started happening to the human population. This was going to take about 24, 26 years, depending on how long they took to actually figure out what the problem is and to send the probes back to Earth. So they were cutting it very, very close to that 30-year mark that Strat warned about on Earth before Dr. Grace's exit. Iridians built objects with a solid form of the gas xenon, which Grace dubbed xenonite. And Iridians and Rocky survive in an ammonia-filled atmosphere that is incredibly hot. And so the two main characters, they can't share an atmosphere, which is why you see the bubble in every way. If you haven't seen the film, that's why he lives in the bubble. And Tau amoebas are found to be in Adrian, which is a neighboring planet of Tau Ceti, its atmosphere, an organism that they discover eats astrophage, stopping the spread. So that's the resolution. That's how they discover. Rose, I want to bring you in, and I want to just let your wealth of knowledge flood, because there's a lot that I can talk about in terms of, and I really want to specifically hit, there's no antagonist in this film. And I want to go down that route and that theme. But before we get there, just open the floodgates and fill us with your knowledge. Let us know the story, this, back, and that way. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So essentially the timeline in the book is stretched out significantly farther. Obviously you've got 400, 500 pages to tell a story opposed to 2.5 hours of film. One of the biggest things that I really wish had been touched on in the film was the coma gene part of the story. So In the movie, Ryland Grace is selected because he knows so much about astrophage. In the book, the reason these astronauts are selected is because they have a coma anti-resistant gene situation. So there was some technology developed before for cancer patients that was designed to allow them to be put in a coma, and then when their treatment was over, they would come back and be fine. It wouldn't have to experience any of the struggles of radiation and treatment. And so these astronauts have that gene. And so they've tested these people, and throughout the book, they kind of like, oh, Strat's like, oh, we need to test you, Grace. And he's like, okay, I guess. And so it comes out that the mission is not only their Hail Mary, Ryland Grace is their Hail Mary. It's truly a stroke of luck that he has this gene that they can send him to space and put him in this coma, and it not hurt him and him being able to wake up. Now, the reason the two astronauts that go with him die, it's really never really touched on. Again, I imagine there's something that happened with the technology of the coma because he can't figure it out. He's in space. And so you kind of like never quite know that, but it's not really a pivotal point to the story at that point. The introduction of the book takes a lot longer as well. So when he comes to, he can't go to the rest of the ship until he figures out who he is and remembers his name and remember all of this information situation. And then from there, he starts to figure out like, hey, I'm in space. I don't remember. I don't know what's going on. And sure, the coma thing is like, okay, that's fine. But why aren't you remembering something? And as the book progresses, and then the last scene, which is touched upon in the movie, where Strat's like, we have to send you, you have to go. She tells him, we're not only going to put you in a coma, we're going to give you this French drug that's going to make you forget these things. But by the time you're in space and by the time it comes to, it's not going to matter. You're going to figure it out already. And of course, she's thinking the other two astronauts are going to be with him, and they're not. So, and that's obviously, those parts are touched on in the movie. Something that I would have liked to have seen as well, and again, it becomes not repetitive, but this part specifically, when they're, what's been kind of dubbed as the fishing scene, right? Where they're fishing in Adrian's atmosphere, they get out of, or try to get back into orbit out of Adrian's atmosphere, and they don't. And I think the filmmakers really show that when the seatbelt falls over. And I thought that was really cool. But after they get up there, the centrifugal motion is what's pushing Ryland against the front of the ship. And so in the movie, obviously, Rocky breaks out of his atmosphere and pulls him towards the middle of the ship. And the reason is because the centrifugal motion is less in the middle. And so something that they don't mention in the movie is that Ryland doesn't pass out at this point. He's like he may have blacked out for a second. He comes to and finds Rocky is in oxygen, right? And he can't be. And so Ryland carries Rocky to his enclosure, essentially. So Rocky weighs 300 pounds. And so he strapped him to his chest and he's carrying him across. And rather than getting the injury, the burn on his arm when Rocky is dragging him along the floor, he gets that burn when he puts him back in his enclosure and the ammonia hits him so hard that quite literally burns the left side of his body. And so this is when he passes out. And so eventually he comes to about 6 hours later and he tries to kind of help Rocky. He's like, I don't know what to do here. Iridium biology is something that's very, very complicated. Their blood is mercury. Like they use water to just clean themselves and it's like at boiling point. So it's some crazy stuff. And so he develops this tool to like blow this black soot on Rocky's, he's got grates on his head essentially. And when Rocky comes back to, he's like, oh, like, did you do this? And Ryland's like, yeah. And he's like, you could have killed me. And he's like, he feels really bad about it because he didn't know that. But that's the soot essentially is what's trying to heal Rocky. When they're experimenting with the Talmiba after that scene, when they've got it back, and so Rocky's come to at this point, it doesn't take him nearly as long to come to in the book. The Talmiba get out and eat all of the fuel in the ship. Okay, and so it's like, what do we do now? Right. And this is when
I want to take a step back real quick. And so we have the Talmiba, and I described it very quickly, but let's give a rehash of what Talmiba is for our audience. Because again, we only described it very quickly.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to do that or do you want me to?
Yeah, sorry, my feed glitched a little bit. I can do that for sure. So
No, you're
essentially, The Talmiba is what they're getting from Adrian's atmosphere. And so they've created kind of this equilibrium system where when it's going to when Astrophage is going to wherever planet they're going to to Adrian and then come back, I presume it should be double, right? The temperature should be double because that's whatever, and it's not. And so that tells them, oh, there must be a predator on Adrian. And so they figure out that that is the reason why there's this equilibrium, that Adrian and these stars, and specifically Tau Ceti and all of this, aren't kind of dying. They aren't reducing in their brightness. And so
you're starting to glitch out on us there, Rose, a little bit. I don't mean to cut you off there, but you're starting to glitch out on us a little bit. So we're gonna wait for your connection to come back. So what she had said, they tested Adrian's atmosphere, and the temperature doesn't come back double, which means that there has to be a predator for the astrophage, is essentially what she was saying. The science behind that, if the temperature's not if it's not changing, then something is keeping it from changing. And so they discover this predator in the atmosphere, which are these microscopic cells known as the Talmibas, because they go to this planet orbiting Tau Ceti, which they rename Adrian as a joke in an homage to Rocky and to like the film, the characters with the Sylvester Stallone and yada, 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 yada. So anyway, until Rose gets back, because I'm gonna wait for her to get a better connection, and then we will bring her back on, because I want to have this discussion. This isn't just a story about, and Rose will have a lot more information. She'll come back, and I promise. But this isn't just a story about, yes, it's a science fiction like novel put to screen. Yes, this is about the survival of humanity. But really, it's a story about Grace's humanity. It's a fact that I find very interesting about the story. Throughout the entire thing, Grace struggles as he's relearning who he is. He's discovering that I'm a coward. That idea of, I was a coward, is something that hits him hard. I didn't, and that's in the book, and Rose will explain that when she gets back. Like, I'm this coward that, I didn't want to do this, yada, yada, yada. I thought I volunteered to be up here, and I didn't, because, again, that drug that made him lose his memory. But the idea is that, is he a coward? Is he not? And we talked about it before. He's just human. And I find it interesting that the most human connection he found was in space with Rocky. The most human character in the entirety of the film is the only non-human character. And I see Rose. Let's bring her back on. Let's see if this will work this time. I think you muted yourself, Rose. We'll bring her back on. Sorry, we're having some connection issues. We're talking about, we've kind of moved on. We described a little bit about the Talmibas and how they're the predators to the astrophage, and they get out, and it's kind of the catalyst for how the ending transpires. We'll get to that here in a second, but we've pivoted to the idea of, is Grace a coward? The idea of Grace discovered everything he reacted to, every reaction, every response he had to every situation throughout the entirety of the film was the most human, relatable response you could have ever had. But what's interesting is, and I just said this a second ago, the most human character he found, or the most human interactions he was having, was with the one non-human character in the entire film. So let's talk a little bit about, because I want us to have that discussion again. We talked about it after the film, about the whole concept of, is Grace a coward?
Can you hear me now?
Who?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. If that happens again, kick me out. It's fine.
No, it's okay.
I think that it's so fair for him to be freaking out about being sent to space, because he does put the not an astronaut, right? And that's very clear in the book. He's like, what am I doing here? And so I think, and in the book, like I imagine you were mentioning, Strat calls him flat out a coward. She's like, listen, if you cared about the people you say you care about, you would go. And so in the book, he doesn't run like he does in the movie. And so those are interesting distinctions as well. But I think to impose this idea of like, oh, you should go to save everybody else, it's entirely valid for him to not want to go. Like, who wants to go? And I can't blame him for that. I can't call him a coward for that. Because if he was a coward and he got to space and he saw the blip A, and then it's like, I would run. I'd leave. I'd go anywhere but there, and he doesn't. And it's very clear in the book. The Ryland's character is a little different. In the book specifically, he's like excited about the presence of an alien, and the movie is a little less forthcoming, which is entirely reasonable. And I think in the book, the scientific nature of his character and the scientific nature of the entire world is explored a lot more. So, but I think again, calling him a coward isn't necessarily fair, but I think Stratton knew that doing that would propel him forward.
Yeah. Again, I think he's the most human character of them all. And like you had said, he's more than justified in his response. I think anyone would have that response. I feel like that is the correct response to have in the face of you will never see your loved ones again. And in Grace's situation, he never really had any. That was something they had described was he was kind of a loner. He never really had any. He didn't have a wife. We hate Mark. He didn't have any kids. He taught at a middle school. But other than that his only connections to Earth were just his school kids, which, again, they cycled out every school year. So I don't know. I just don't feel like him wanting to stay on Earth was a cowardice move. And so I find this fascinating that the one person who respected him, the one person who allowed him to have the space to feel and to be who he was Rocky. The only person in the entire thing who saw Grace for what he is and for who he is and respected him, again, is the one non-human character in the entirety of the film and the novel by an extension. So I just find Grace to be super relatable. Like, again, Jake brought up a great comparison is to Pluribus. Carol in Pluribus is the most right in the entire series.
Yeah.
She runs into other humans and they're like, well, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe free will is overrated. And she's the one person who has the correct response, which is no. Like, she's the one person who's competing with that. And Grace, I feel like, again, everyone's freaking out on Earth and there's only a select few people who can actually do something about this, right? But him not wanting to leave, I just don't think that makes him a coward. I don't think he's a coward in the slightest. And I love the interactions. Now I want to get to that ending. I want to circle back to that ending because Rocky, we haven't talked about this. Rocky gives Grace a way home. He has more than enough astrophage and is willing to donate the required amount, 12 million kilotons. Was that what it is? 12 kilotons?
2 million.
2 million.
We needed 2 million.
2 million kilotons of astrophage, which is a lot of astrophage, and a lot of anything. So he's willing to donate that because he has more than enough to get home, hoping Grace will get home. But as you described right before you left and came back, the Talmebas get out and they start eating.
Yeah.
Let's go over what Grace discovers.
For sure. So there's only one like Talmeba scene in the movie. And again, in the book, they get out, and there's a point where it's like, they're still in Adrian's atmosphere, and like in the area of Adrian. So like, it took, I believe, 11 or 12 days to get there from the Blip A, from Rocky's ship. And so now you're thinking, how are we going to get out of here, essentially? So the Talmeba get in the astrophage, and it's gone. There's no fuel in the ship, and so the ship essentially turns off. And there's a really cool scene in the book where one screen on the computer, or and the ship's a little different in the book too. There's one screen and it says trouble in big red letters in all 3 languages. And so it's like, oh, something must be funky here. And so him and Rocky kind of worked together to figure out what they're going to do. And so he actually goes in and cleans the fuel tanks by hand. Because the thing is, when Talmeba eat, they got to do something else, right? So they leave things behind. And so they have to clean out all this gunk, and there's a distinct smell. And so that's what helps Ryland figure out, oh, they're here. They've eaten all of our fuel. And so that's when the beetles kind of come into a bigger play. So those are the things they send out to send back to Earth. And so those have astrophage. They need fuel to get home. And so they actually kind of hijack the beetles, and they go out, and Ryland puts them on the sides of the ship, and they steer with that to get it home, or to get them back to Blip A. And so that was a really cool scene, and I think that of the things to cut, that's what you have to cut. Okay. So, and then of course the next Talmeba scene happens when Ryland is heading home, and so he knows kind of better how to manage it at that time. But yeah, that was kind of like a really cool thing. And then Rocky builds him new fuel tanks to replace the ones he's jettisoned off the ship. So that was very much like, okay, how are we going to get home? This is how we're going to do this.
Yeah, and the thing is a character who's put in impossible situation after impossible situation. Once Ryland realizes that the Talmiba, they have adapted to these xenonite containers that Rocky had built to contain and hold these very precious specimens that will save the galaxy. They learn that they have adapted and evolved very quickly, and they can now phase through, and that's how they escape. That's how they escape specifically the second time in the book, but in the movie, that's kind of the big reveal. And again, in a film of impossible situations, this feels like the most impossible situation. And this again highlights the humanity that Rocky and Ryland share. And it shows, again, we talk about coward versus bravery. Bravery is a big deal too. There's many a time where Rocky is calling Grace brave in the film, and Grace is saying, nah, I don't know about that. Like he's purposefully deflecting. But this is the moment that I feel like you talk about. We said it last night when we had discussed the film after we watched it, was this is his redeeming quality. This is the biggest redeeming factor in the entire film. After he discovers this, we realize, Ryland describes and the audience realizes, the entirety of the ship is made out of xenonite that Rocky's piloting, which means that there is nothing that he can do to stop it.
He can't do anything.
He can't do anything. The Talmiba, they haven't evolved to phase through everything in the Hail Mary, but when your entire ship is made out of the one thing they've evolved to escape, there's no way to stop it, and there's really no way to figure out what's happening. So again, in a film of impossible situations, Grace makes the one decision. He uses the Beatles, these 4 probes, to jettison and send back to Earth another 13 years on Earth time, the Talmibas, to save the Earth, and he turns around to save Rocky. Tell us about that moment in the book, because in the movie, it's this very, like, you have this crescendo of music and you don't really get to hear their conversation, but it's this very, very emotional, tear-jerking moment where Grace shows up and Rocky's like, oh, like not that he has a face to do that with, but just from his reaction, his body responses. Tell us about that moment in the book.
Yeah. So essentially, again, it takes, in the movie, they kind of show the time that it takes back to get back to Blip A. But in the book, there's a lot more science and kind of, it's very clear, like, this could go one way or the other. Rocky could be dead and gone by the time he got there, right? Things could have gone, he could have drifted away. The math could have been wrong. There could have been many different things, and the book makes that very clear. And so in the lead up to it, it's very clear that Ryland is realizing that Rocky is his only friend. And he says this line specifically, and he says, I wish Rocky were here. I always wish Rocky were here.
So you're cutting out a little bit, Rose. I want to highlight that line again. I wish Rocky were here. I always wish Rocky were here. This is from the most outcast, the most kind of like loner kid at the school table type of individual, whether it be his own fault. And something else too, going over his character, he was not right about his hypothesis that ousted him, that casted him out of his own community. They prove, in fact, in the film and in the book, that his hypothesis of not every life form needs water throughout the galaxy, that's wrong. The astrophage need water. They're made of very similar compounds and have a similar structure to humanity. So he's proven wrong. So he has nothing on Earth. And his only connection is with Rocky. So this, and I don't mean to cut you off. I'm gonna bring you back in to continue what you were saying, but you were cutting out there for a second, and I just wanted to make sure our audience heard that, because that's such a crucial moment. The connection between the two and how he found his people after leaving Earth, which is a fun concept.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I know my mic's being stupid. But so he gets to the Blip A, and there's not a lot of activity, right? And he does his spacewalk, and he's banging on the essentially what is another form of xenite. That's clear. And he's banging on it. And Rocky, and again, you don't get to hear that conversation. And I think that would have been something really cool. And so the first thing Rocky asks, he says, Grace, question? So it's very much like is he here? Like, is my best friend here? And so he's like, yeah, I came back for you. And Rocky's trying to explain to him what's happening. He's like, I know. And so that is essentially how the book ends until you get into the prologue, essentially. And something really cool in the book is that the chapter name is in Iridian. The number is Iridian. And so when I flipped that page an hour before I went and seen the movie for the first time, I thought, that's interesting. And so, because if you're not looking, you don't catch him. And so at this point, he's on Erin, and it's 16 years later. And so it kind of tells you a little more about what the process was for him to acclimate to Erin, right? And so it's they figure things out or whatever, and he's aged 16 years, and it's very much like Rocky tells him, "Hey, Earth has returned back to itself," essentially. And so it's like, okay, this is a great way to end the story, and it ends the same way that the movie ends. So, and it's like the last line of the book is like 12 claws raise their hand, and that's in italics, and that's how the book ends. And honestly, I couldn't imagine it ending any other way, because he didn't have a life on Earth, right? This was his life now. And so there was nothing there for him.
Yeah, and I think, again, going back to the comparisons between the two and discussing, when I say the comparisons, I mean his life on Earth and his life post leaving Earth, right? The same question is asked. Grace asks both to Strat and to Rocky at the beginning and at the end, can I think about it? And he asks that in response to leaving where he is. Strat is like, hey, you are the only person for this, whether it's the book version or the film version. And the response to Grace's question of, can I think about it, was, you have 3 hours. Knowing all along that he never had a choice. Strat was going to send him regardless. When it's posed to Rocky, Rocky's response is, think as long as you need, think long time. Because again, there's that respect to his humanity and to his individual self. And there's that sense of, this is home for you. Like, this is you are my best friend. I feel like you are home. Take as long as you want, because yes, you can go back to Earth. Iridian scientists can rebuild the Hail Mary. Earth is back to itself. You can go. But Grace wants to take his time. He wants to figure out, because we both know, in terms of Grace and Rocky, and the audience knows, he's not leaving. He's found himself. He's a teacher to these Iridian youth. And he, again, everything that he is, he's a scientist again, on the mission from the Hail Mary. He's a teacher again from his time on Erin, and he has that community that he never had before. So it is a beautiful film through and through. It is, as I said at the beginning, it's a masterpiece for what it was trying to be. It wasn't trying to be something it wasn't. It's a fun, action-packed sci-fi thriller with deep meaning behind humanity. It's a story about what makes something human. And at the end of the day, it's kind of a reflection of like us. And so I love everything it's trying to say. And I absolutely love this film. It's going to be a film I return to. We said before, the only film that I can think of that made me feel as good as that film was Superman last year, just in terms of being human and having an identity of self and learning who you are. Because again, the story's told in non-linear. It's just about who Grace is. Who is Grace? And the payoff, the audience expectation and the resolution, what we take away from it is so satisfying. That is what makes a good film a good film. If you want to really break it down into the emotional side of it, why do we like some films and hate others? Is the emotional payoff, is that satisfaction where it needs to be? And this is ranked to the 11 for what it gives you for sticking through it and for getting to know these characters and to love these characters and living in this world. And yeah, I absolutely love it. So before we let you go, Rose, we have to do it. We're going to do our rankings. We got a 5 out of 5 film reels here on Beyond the Screen, because our logo is a lovely film reel. Thank you, Jake Holtzclaw, for making that. So let's go through. We'll start with Rose. What out of 5 film reels is your official review of Project Hail Mary?
For me, because I know the book, right? And I want to make it very clear, I'm not a sci-fi reader. I've never been a sci-fi reader. I will go back and reread this book probably a million times. It is well written. It's a unique story, and it's a happy ending, and I like a happy ending. So because of that, honestly, I think I'm probably going to give it 5 out of 5.
Lovely. Jake?
I got 4.8 out of 5.
That's fair.
I want more, and this is going to be probably the sequel, I would say, because the reason that the astronauts die in the ship is alluded to by the author as being a good portion of information for a sequel that he may or may not be planning. So I don't know how that's going to play into it, but there are talks. That is what the reason everybody's like, oh, there's talks of a sequel, and everybody's like, oh, it's perfect the way it is. But there's a lot of stuff in the book that happens on Earth that does not get talked about, and it's a lot of cool stuff. and it's a lot of like ethical dilemma stuff that Strat has to make, including paving the Sahara Desert, paving it, just
I'm glad you bring
the
that
entire
up.
desert. I have an image of something. I think people they made it or somehow, or probably ChatGPT, whatever. That's what they're claiming it would look like from space.
And honestly, that's
of what
pretty
she did.
accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To capture the heat from the sun that otherwise the Sahara Desert actually expels because it's closer to white, and so it actually reflects it. But they turned the Sahara black so they could get the heat from the sun, what little I guess was coming through. Secondarily, nuking the ice caps.
Yeah, they know. Yeah, you're right. They do that.
In the movie, we see her on an ice-breaking ship, likely due to that, as she's trying to break up as much ice as she can, which raise sea levels.
It also emitted greenhouse gases, was a big thing there too. Yeah.
So technically killing people, I would say, with floods and whatnot. So 4.8 out of 5, because I want more Strat and I want more of the ethical dilemmas that she got like full immunity from all countries for.
Yeah. So it's funny you say, so we talk about the things that are missing, and that's why I give it a 4.5. Not because I think of it any less than you guys do, and I hate that it's a cascading down and it gets to me and I'm the lowest of the three. But hater, yeah. But
we want more. We want more.
So the thing is again, this film was supposed to be 4 hours long before a coalition of other filmmakers told the duo directors, Miller and Lord, that they had to lower the runtime. So they cut it from 4 hours to 3, then down to 2.5. The problem is that it's not just Earth. For me, I want to know more about Rocky. I want to know more about the Iridians. I want to know more about their biology. There's a part in it that I was emphasizing to Rose just yesterday. There's a scene where when they're going fishing on Adrian, he's in his little enclosure, he's in his bubble, and Grace makes a joke, unless you can make 5 kilometers of chain. And you look, and before he's even said that, Rocky's already building out of the air, using xenonite, pulling it out of nowhere, and essentially 3D printing this chain. And Grace makes a joke, or can you do that? And Rocky's like, yes. And it's like, for me, it's like, I want to know how he's able to do that. I don't care if it's a quick justification. Why can they do that? Because for me, that's where, like, I'm a fan of Doctor Who, okay? Doctor Who, they have faux science, and this is very scientifically accurate, right? In Doctor Who, they say, well, the sonic screwdriver can, fluctuate the matter within the device, and it changes in it. That's how he solves the problem. And it's like, you know what? That's good enough for me. That at least I know or have an understanding of what he's doing, so that in the grand scheme of things, it feels more real, right? Like, it adds to the realism whenever you give an explanation. And I understand that they had to cut stuff for runtime, and they needed to probably cut around some corners because, again, they're trying to keep the realism as an all-time high. However, I would like to know where's the xenonite coming from, because it looks like it's coming out of the device that he's using to craft the chain with. And that is something that, for me, that's the stuff that I miss. I want to know more about, again, I said their biology. You said, Rose, in the book it's described that he's 300 pounds. Rocky's 300 pounds. How's that work? I want to know about what makes him such a small creature, so dense, right? Obviously, he's a rock, or he's rock adjacent. He's a boulder. But I would like to know more of these things. I'd like to know how the ammonia is used as air, or the ammonia-filled atmosphere. How does that operate? Why does he dissolve in CO2 and in oxygen? I want to know these things. And I know they're explained in the book, but these are things that I would have loved to have seen, even if they're quick clips or quips from character to character. These are the fine-tuning, and that's the world building that fascinates me. And so that's why I give it a 4.5. And the thing is, it's nothing to do with the directors, because they were told to cut it, and I cannot wait for that 4-hour director's cut. I cannot wait for it.
Will we get it?
I think so. Amazon's really wanting to make too much money. Rose, you were going to say something before I kept yapping. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're okay. Something that's also kind of not touched on in the movie is that there's this kind of quip between Ryland and Rocky that, like, oh, the way I eat is more beautiful than the way you eat. But in the book, it is very clear that the way Iridians eat is something very private, and it's kind of that they do not want to share with others. It's very much like, I don't want you to know about this, right? And so that was interesting. Like, you make that choice, it's because people are going. That's going to be like a good wonder. Like, what is this, right? And in the grand scheme of things, does it matter? Maybe not. But yeah, I was sitting in the theater. That's an interesting choice. Not a bad choice, but an interesting one.
Yeah, I will say it was so, like, of all the lines, because Rocky's just a cute character. Of all the lines, that one was the one that made me like that. I don't know why, but in the movie when he says, "How you eat's disgusting," and Grace goes, "How do you eat?" and he goes, "I bet you eat gross," and he goes, "Rocky, eat beautiful." Like, it was just such like a very like, it was so honest, and you could tell he meant it, and it was just adorable the way he said it, and he like leaned up. He's like, "Rocky, eat beautiful," and it was just like such a, like, it's little quips like that that's like that, like, add to the, again, that make you fall in love with these characters, and that's why I want more. I want more of these interactions. I want to learn more. I don't care how he eats, but like the fact that we got that created a sense of realism and connected us to the character, because it's gross. Like it is gross, but like how honest he feels about it, and seeing and sharing the differences between the two species what again puts you in those worlds. And I feel like it's a shame that they were given the advice to cut it, because I loved every second of it. So anyway, our total Beyond the Screen score, probably 4.8. So we'll round it up to 5. We'll round it up. The Beyond the Screen, rounding all around, gives it a 5 film reels out of 5. An official, almost perfect movie from Beyond the Screen. This is our first 5 out of 5, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you so much for sticking around this long. We're about to end our second segment. So Rose, anything you want to tell the beautiful people before we let you go?
Not particularly. If you like to read, if you somewhat like to read, I really do recommend you picking up the book. I know my next read is The Martian, so simply because I like Project Hail Mary so much. So that is kind of my last dying words.
All right. Well, with that out of the way, thank you so much, Rose. We're gonna go ahead and let you go. Have a great rest of your night.
I'll see y'all later.
We'll see you later. So yeah, I'm so excited about this movie. Thank you so much, Rose. Something too I want to note on before we get out of this segment. Last thing I'll say, can you believe these two directors were fired from creating Solo?
And Solo turned out the way it did.
Awful. They brought in Ron Howard, who's he's a fantastic director. We love Ron Howard. But they fired the creators of Project Hail Mary for Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Ugh. That's all I'm going to say. There's a reason that movie turned out not great. And with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get out of our second segment. We're going to quickly go through what you should know before you go. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Screen. You made it to segment 3, which is always what you should know before you go. So, beyond my voice crack at the end of last segment, usually what happens here in our third segment is we have between 5 and 8 quick stories that were big, but not big enough to be the main topic, and we're going to go through them and give you a little bit of what we think about each and every one of them. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and go back to what we should know before we go, and let's get you guys out of here. But before we do that, thank you guys so much for being here. We love talking about this. We love highlighting the film industry. We love highlighting entertainment. We just love sharing our opinions. We love going through and delving deep into the stories that surround us, not just fiction, but also nonfiction. We just love doing this. And so thank you so much for allowing us to do this and to be here and for us to share our passion with you guys. Thank you for allowing me to do this with some of my closest and dearest friends, including Rose, who's a newer addition to the team. She's helping us with our socials beyond just being an avid story engager. She loves everything storytelling, and she's a journalist, but she also is an avid reader, which helps us a lot when we have a book adaptation to film. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for being here. Like, subscribe, follow, comment, share, do everything depending on what, not even depending, just regardless of what platform you're on. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to share it, and we'd love to see you guys represented. So again, thank you so much for watching. And with that out of the way, enough rambling. Let's get into what you should know before you go. Starting with Disney, you might have heard about this one, unless you were living under a rock. Little Hail Mary reference there. Disney and new CEO Josh D'Amaro step away from their $1 billion investment into OpenAI after the AI company sunsets their AI slop video app Sora. That is quotes AI slop. Sora is a very much not an industry standard term, but the internet's making it industry standard for how they felt about Sora. This investment was to allow Disney Plus subscribers to use OpenAI and Sora to create short video content using their legendary characters. Jake, what do we think about this?
Is this a precursor to the bubble pop? Are we seeing the first stepping stone of the pop? Something else that comes to mind is Google's new, I guess, code or way of utilizing your server memory or computer memory 6 times more efficiently. So people are like, this is great news. This is crazy. Like the memory stocks took a plummet after that was announced by Google, and everybody's like freaking out. That's like, finally it's going to somewhat go back to normal. And then other people are like, no, this just means they're going to make 6 times more data centers because now they can use it 6 times more efficiently. Therefore, they can spend more money on more, 6 times more. So we'll see what happens there. But the stocks did plummet. There was a lot of sell to Micron, which was a maker of budget RAM for consumer use, as well as like they had other segments that were more business B2B, but consumer use, they had stopped doing all consumer RAM and they went full into AI, and their stock took a dive when that was announced recently. So we've got 2 major events here that could be the stepping stones, could be the precursor, but time will tell.
I don't want to say I don't think this is the bubble pop, because again, I think that there will be, but we have to taper our expectations, because it's not going to be how we want, which is like the industry, not the industry, but like common man wants it just to collapse. They want their RAM back.
It won't. Won't.
It will survive in some way. It will come back down to earth, regardless of what that looks like. Yeah,
for sure.
My takeaway from this is, while this is probably something to celebrate in terms of like content in the like, there's a certain level of like prestige with these characters, and when you just give them out for slop, like AI Sora slop, to just do whatever you want with, it kind of degrades the image and the quality of that character, right? Which is kind of what that's a little bit of what my worry was like, we had Darth Vader using racial slurs in Fortnite, and you're going to tell, like, that is going to be forever a part of that character's history. And that's unfortunate. And that degrades the legacy of the character, right? The thing is, it's not just about that this is a precursor to the bubble popping, because I think it's going to happen anyway. We just have to brace for whatever will look like after that. Going on to the RAM thing, someone's going to fill the gap, because there's too much money to be made from consumers. And it's just going to be a matter of if Microsoft can figure it out, how to make quality RAM at an affordable price. If, whatever, AMD, there's going to be somebody, Apple even, there's going to be somebody that's going to, China, someone's going to fill the gap, because there's too much money. It's just a matter of this all happened too quickly for industries to catch up. Just every major distributor of, whether it's Micron, whether it's NVIDIA, all these major companies that make RAM, all of a sudden, all at once leaving the consumer industry was not something that was on anyone's, bingo board. So, unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. Someone will fill that gap. It's just a matter of when. My big thing with this isn't as big of a precursor to the bubble popping as we might think, because what happened with OpenAI right before they decided to shut down Sora? They were given government. They were given a multi-billion-dollar contract from the Pentagon to become the government's official AI, because Claude turned it down. Because Claude,
and then they proceeded to bomb schools.
Yes. Yes.
Oops.
Whoops. Political. Oh. But no, if anything, OpenAI decided and realized that they didn't have to hinge their bets on the consumers or Disney to make their money whenever the government came calling, because Claude turned it down, because Claude's making their money from universities and from other institutions. So Claude's they didn't need it, and they have a spine and morals, and they decided they didn't want to be a government front, right? OpenAI, slimy and as greedy as they are, said, we'll take whatever money we can get, and then they realized they didn't have to hinge their bets. So if anything, this is good for media. It's not really saying anything about the industry. It does, in my opinion. I don't like, all this means is that, okay, OpenAI is still getting paid. They're not getting paid as much. They're fine. So something to keep in mind as well. OpenAI is now just getting paid by other means. And if not getting paid, they're getting paid more than what they would have with this deal. So they're not batting an eye at this falling through, because
now it's my taxes.
Yeah, we should be the ones batting an eye because definitely we're going to be the one paying that back. Someone's got to foot the bill, and the government's not going to at a $1 trillion deficit. But anywho, let's move on and get out of politics in the sad state of our reality. Let's get back into film news. Moving on, the next story. A new Lord of the Rings spinoff is in development at New Line, and Warner Brothers from writers Philippa Boyens and Stephen Colbert and his son, who's a screenwriter by the name of Peter McGee. Which
that's not funny. I don't know why I laughed.
I'm not insulting the Colbert name, but that is a goofy name you gave your kid there. Peter Colbert. That's a solid name. Peter McGee. Interesting. But anyway, we're being very sarcastic. We're not insulting Stephen Colbert. Anywho, or are we? Stephen Colbert, his son, and longtime Lord of the Rings writer Philippa Boyens are currently in development of a script for a Lord of the Rings spinoff, which has a synopsis of, quote, 14 years after the passing of Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin set out to retrace the first steps of their adventure. Meanwhile, Sam's daughter, Eleanor, has discovered a long-buried secret and is determined to uncover why the War of the Ring was nearly lost before it even began. According to the AP, Colbert and his son came up with the idea for the script after discussing the undeveloped 6 early chapters of the Fellowship of the Ring novel. Colbert called Lord of the Ring director Peter Jackson after some time after they had developed the story, who became interested. The film will go into production after Andy Serkis's The Hunt for Gollum releases this year. Interesting pivot for Colbert, who's losing his late night talk show. Oh, that's kind of the industry response is, okay, that's fascinating. But it's not necessarily out of character, because if you know anything Stephen Colbert, the dude's a nerd, and he loves him some Tolkien. And I find this fascinating because, like, that era after, we really didn't get to see a lot. We went to the prequels with The Hobbit, and we got to see Bilbo. Now seeing what happens after Frodo gets on the ship and sails away, if you will, with Gandalf and dies. Seeing what happens following that, 14 years to be specific, I'm excited. Can you imagine, like just the return of all these characters and like just these actors into their roles? I'm assuming that they're going to bring back all these people. Elijah Wood said as long as he's willing and able, he's going to always be playing Frodo. So we're probably going to get a Frodo back, like flashback at some point with like new footage with Elijah Wood returning. I'm excited. I know that might not be the industry, like maybe not like the common feel, but the thing is, if there's one story or one universe that deserves to be expanded, it's Lord of the Rings, because it's so massive and there's so much story there.
I'm still begging the girlfriend to watch Star Wars and then Lord of the Rings. Like it's up there with like, please watch Lord of the Rings. Please. Come on. If you can sit through that, you can sit through Star Wars.
The extended 9-hour trilogy.
I don't think I've even seen that.
Oh my gosh. I love the Lord of the Rings so much. It's just, it was one of those, like, our childhood, we grew up when the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbits were coming out, whenever Harry Potter was coming out, the prequels for Star Wars. What a great era to like live in as a kid. Yeah. Transformers was coming out. Like what an era. And it's just so sad that like we didn't get this sooner. You know, like why did they wait 10 years after the prequel, or the prequel trilogy, which was 10 years after the original? Like why did they wait so long? I don't know, but I'm happy to see more Lord of the Rings.
They didn't think there was money in it.
I'm not going
Surprised Wyan face.
I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Moving on, Sony just flipped the script on Marvel and Warner Brothers. I don't know if you guys heard about this. We talked last week about how many in the industry, and fans for that matter, were concerned for Jumanji 3's box office performance due to its December 11th release date, which I think is hilarious. People were like, oh no, Jumanji, no. Like, what? The Rock, no. Kevin Hart, no. Like, I find that funny, but there was a lot of concern that this trilogy was not going to perform well because it was releasing a week before Doomsday, December 18th, which both were holding pat, right? And one's moving. We're on a collision course for two massive behemoths of films from Marvel and from Warner Brothers coming out December. However, this past week, Sony said, actually, we're not going to stay put on December 11th. We're going to go December 25th. So not only are they still wanting to compete, do they feel confident enough that their film can compete with the dual-headed dragon that is Doomsday? They think they can capitalize on this. They think that the two will compete in their first week and eat each other's lunch, and that they can sweep in on Christmas Day, the holiday premiere. This positions Jumanji 3 as the holiday experience. Isn't that nuts? And the thing is, it's genius. It could work.
No.
You don't think so?
Didn't I say that last week?
Say what?
That Jumanji 3 was going to flop because of the Doomsday and Dune 3.
Yes, because it was going before. Now it's going after, when people are excited to go to the movies. People have already seen it.
I don't know. I think a lot of people are going to see Doomsday and Dune 3 and not go back the second week.
Interesting. I think that, Christmas usually sees a huge uptick in sales. I think they'll go. Will Jumanji beat either of these other two that are going into their second weekend? That's the question. No, Jake doesn't think so.
Mm-mm.
The response to Dune Part 2, when you had people who had made their hoverboards into the worm and they were Paul Atreides riding into the theater.
Yeah.
There's a lot of apprehension for Doomsday. I think Marvel should be in trouble. They don't even have the IMAX screens. They're going to D-Box and they're in the 4D screens, trying their hardest to circumvent the IMAX. Now, on top of it, in your second week, you're already fighting an uphill battle. People don't trust your product. Although they've come out with a few good series, like Spider-Man will be a big plus for them. Daredevil's a big plus for them right now. The Punisher special is going to be a big plus for them. But still, there's a lot of apprehension for what this means. There will be a lot of excitement. But you're dealing with Dune Part 3, which could cap a perfect trilogy if done right. Got a stacked cast just like the Avengers. And now you have a film like Jumanji that has all the makings of being another blockbuster if it sticks around and if it hits what it should. I think Dune will probably outpace the others. Maybe Marvel might be in trouble. I'm not going to say it is, but it's interesting. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm just going to go to the theater and watch Doomsday a bunch, so Ryan's wrong.
I'm going to watch Jumanji 5 times.
I'll watch Marvel 10 times.
No, I'm just kidding. But anywho, let's move on. Although we've talked a lot about Ryan Gosling today, it was reported last week that the star will officially lead in Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert's next film, the duo behind Everything Everywhere All at Once. Are we excited about this?
Why are we getting a second?
We're not getting a second Everything Everywhere. This is these are the two directors. No, you're good.
I thought I had read that there was going to be another Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I don't know. All I know is that this is the next film by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, and that it's going to star Ryan Gosling, who's reportedly signed on.
That's fine. It's going to be great. Bro's yet to put out, or at least that I can remember, a sub 88% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Bro's insane, and he's perfect for any role he's in. He's about to. Star Wars is going to release this year. I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited.
I'll go back to Project Hail Mary, where he was talking to Strat about how she's so mysterious and how he wishes he was mysterious. And it's because he talks too much. And I really think that they were referencing Drive there. I think that was definitely the reason. It was like, I know I can't do it just because I talk too much.
Do you also think there's a level of projection there too? I wish I was mysterious. He was just genuinely being honest. That wasn't scripted. They just filmed that.
Yeah. So it was like, me too, Ryan. But
I'm on anything Ryan Gosling. I'm there. I'm watching it. And I'm so excited for this film. And we'll see. But anyway, let's get off Ryan Gosling. We got 2 more, then we'll get out of here. HBO CEO Casey Bloys recently shared that while the new Harry Potter series won't be released annually, which is a crime, the second season is already being written. And from what I had read, he was like, we have to hurry because the kids are growing, but it's not going to release annually. By the time you get through everything, it's going to be like 12 years. They're going to be like close to 20. You're going to have a Stranger Things effect anyway. Why are we not preparing for season 2 already?
Well, sorry.
No, you're good. That's just my initial thought.
I've heard probably more negatives about the new Harry Potter series than I have like positives.
I made the point to someone recently, and it might have been on the show actually. When I saw the teaser for the new series, again, we talked about before, we grew up with the Harry Potter movies, and I understand there's so much, and I've said this before, I'm not necessarily opposed to the new series because there's so much in the book that just wasn't covered. because you have so much runtime. How many times we brought a whole person on strictly to bring up the book of Project Hail Mary because of this exact point, right? You only have so much runtime, and there's a lot that has to get cut. So I get it, and there's so many books in the series. I understand. However, when I saw the teaser and I saw just how the characters looked, a part of me died a little bit because they just like, it's not Daniel Radcliffe. It just feels fake. And that's just, I'm a product of my time, unfortunately. Like, I don't think they're doing anything wrong. I've made the point, leave the kids alone, let them do their thing because they're doing as best they can. They did not grow up with the Daniel Radcliffes, and they did not grow up with the original series. So it's not like it's something it's not their fault. Like, they're doing the best they can. I still maintain that. But I see how they look, and it just feels like cosplay. It just doesn't feel, I don't know. It doesn't feel right.
Somebody said Hagrid looks like he's on Ozempic, which is
Nick
awful.
Frost, leave him alone. I like Nick Frost.
Yeah, but like they were talking about comparatively how I forget his name now, but Hagrid in the original movies was Lithgow just looked more of the offspring of a giant, or like a hybrid between man and giant, and how he just looked jolly and rosy cheeked and just larger than life. And this one looks like Nick Frost in a beard.
Yeah,
I don't know, which I'm sure Lithgow got the same thing. It was like, he just looks like him in a beard. But I've also seen where people are like doing challenges on like recolor grading the TV show because it's so desaturated without contrast.
Same thing with Moana.
But yeah, that too.
Yeah.
So I've seen many
when that dude colored it correctly.
I've seen a bunch of Harry Potter like scenes, and it's always like a different scene that they do, and it's like, man, imagine, dude, like looking at them side by side. This happens on the timeline. If anybody's on the timeline, you'll notice if you pop the saturation, you're looking at it, and it's like, oh man, that looks like junk, and then you bring it back to what it was before, and it's like, where'd all the color go?
Yeah,
this looks sad now, and it's literally your eyes playing a trick on you. I have done that accidentally, and I've had to like walk away. I've had to like go make a bowl of ramen because I'm like, now it looks too sad and it's going to be oversaturated.
I was correcting a photo from a convention that I shot not long ago, and I did that exact same thing. I turned the saturation up way too high, and I was like, I don't like that it makes her look like a clown, and I just Command Z'd, and it just went great, and I was like, it's the worst feeling, but I don't know, it's just I hate that they're sucking the life out of everything with the color, but anyway.
But we haven't seen a lot of the hate that we thought we would for the actors playing Harry Potter and the kids. We're not seeing, at least I'm not seeing the hate that we thought would happen.
Yeah,
because they're trying to portray people from our childhood. Like I don't think that they're actually doing that.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I don't know if it's because they're doing a good job, or even if they weren't doing a good job, would people focus in on them as well? But I've not seen anything about the actors outside of the appearance of like Hagrid and our McGonagall and just I guess that would be more costume than anything, as well as like casting. But like, or not casting, but I guess it is costume, but. Because everybody was on board with Nick Frost until they saw photos of him.
I know. I like Nick Frost. I still think he's going to do great. I think like I'm going to watch it. And I'm going to be like, you know what? I like this. And there might be a time when I get used to it. I just have to accept that it's not made for me. Like it's just not made for me. It will never be better than the original movies. And that's just that, because I can't separate the character from the movies. But regardless, I'm not hating on anybody. I understand why they did it. There was so much story left untold, and they're going to make a lot of money. And these kids are getting the role of a lifetime. This will set them up for the rest of their lives. So I can't hate this. This isn't like a cash grab live action adaptation. This actually does serve a purpose. And so like I respect it for that. But man, it is, I see it, and it's just, I didn't expect it to hit me as hard, and I wanted to bring that up. And lastly, what you should know: Tomb Raider pauses production after Sophie Turner suffers a minor injury. Filming is expected to resume in the near future. Isn't that the most Tomb Raider thing you ever heard?
Getting hurt.
I got hurt.
You know who? Tom Holland played Nathan Drake, right?
Yeah.
He didn't. Did he get hurt on that one too?
I think he did. Hold on, let me
Yeah.
see.
And then he got hurt on Spider-Man. I know
I
Nathan Drake.
think he had a concussion on Spider-Man recently.
Was it Nathan Drake? In Uncharted, yeah. Reminded me of that. Tomb Raider and Uncharted. But I hope she's all right. It's probably just like a leg or an arm injury, I would assume, right?
Yeah, it's something very minor. Tom Holland sustained several injuries performing his own stunts in Uncharted, including severe hamstring tinnitus, bruised hips from his hitting tile, and hand injuries. You're making Uncharted. I don't know. Like yeah.
What about Tomb Raider?
Just like this.
What
What
if
I'm saying.
Sophie like actually hit a real booby trap? Maybe that's what it was.
All right, Sophie, realism. That's an actual spike trap. Good luck. Yep. You've been training, right? And she's like,
and it was like she narrowly missed it, but like the spike trap actually had poison on it, and so she kind of like went down for a little bit. That was the minor injury.
Yeah. The director's like leaning over, and she's got foam coming out of her mouth, and they're like looking up at the DP. And DP's
better.
DP's got the camera behind him, and he's just missed the shot. Got to redo it. Got to redo it.
I guess we got to call in the stunt double.
Yeah, take 5. Take 5, everybody.
Which means, I guess this means that Sophie Turner is doing the stunts, or no?
More than likely, they'll probably have a handful of stunt doubles, but it sounds, if she's suffering an injury, it sounds like she's trying to do her own, which adds to the realism. I respect Tom Holland a lot for doing his own Spider-Man stunts too, and anyone who not only puts on the cowl or puts on the costume to embody that person, but when they also try to do the stunts, it's really cool. So. Yeah, I'm excited for Tomb Raider. I think Sophie Turner looks great. I think that she embodies the character. I didn't understand the hate because I felt like she was Lara Croft, like just a different version. Like it wasn't like she was trying too hard. It just felt like this was her own take on the character, and I felt like it looked fine. Like I felt like it was source material enough. Whatever. But anyway, any final thoughts before we let the people go?
No. Go watch Hail Mary.
Project Hail Mary. Yes, same thought at the same time. Go watch this movie. First 5 out of 5 and Beyond the Screen's history. We need to get a running catalog of what we rate and how we rate them. Because
actually, read the book.
Read the book too. Do both. I plan on reading the book here in the near future, just because I love the story so much.
He's got another movie coming about
Andy
another
Weir.
book as well. Yeah, which the Martian. The Martian was already done. That was a 2015 movie, right?
Yeah, 2012.
He wrote that book, or he wrote that
Artemis.
Book. Artemis coming out. Also his book. He's done a lot of books and a lot of movies, and they're really good. Martian's really good. Project Hail Mary is really good. And I assume Artemis is going to be awesome. So read the book.
Yeah. Read Artemis too, just quickly. Artemis is a 2017 science fiction novel by Andy Weir that follows smuggler Jasmine Bashara in humanity's first city on the moon, Artemis, as she gets caught up in a high-stakes heist and conspiracy to control the lunar colony. That sounds fantastic. I'm excited to read that and excited for the movie. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for hanging around with us for a little bit longer than what our runtime for season 3 was allotted. So appreciate you guys. Love you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.